Welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak. Now, the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, that is COPS, directed all universities and their constituent colleges to declare the cost of their academic programs by today. All vice-chancellors of universities and principals of constituent colleges are expected to provide the information to COPS to help students who sat for KCSE in 2022 in the choice of academic programs. The students will be the first cohort under the new funding model for universities and TVETs.
Over 850,000 candidates sat for the 2022 KCSE exams, out of which 173,345 candidates managed to attain university entry requirement of C+ and above. However, the delay in opening the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service portal has made their way to transition into the next chapter of their education unusually long. After hosting a stakeholders meeting at State House, Nairobi on Wednesday, President William Ruto said the delay was occasioned by the need to agree on a new funding model for universities. COPS CEO Mercy Wahome had affirmed that the portal will be opened in a week's time once the universities have issued the course of their academic programs. According to a circular dated 5th May 2023, the newly unveiled funding model will take effect starting from the 2023-2024 academic year, meaning that the process of placing students to universities and TVETs shall not be linked to funding. COPS, directing all vice-chancellors of universities and principals of constituent colleges to disclose and provide the information on the cost of the academic programs by Tuesday, 9th of May 2023. The institutions are expected to unveil a list detailing all the programs they offer, the duration of study, and the cost of the program per year. COPS will then publish the information ahead of the commencement of placements in order to help the students make informed decisions. Once the portal is opened, learners who sat for their KCSE exams in 2022 will be able to apply for courses in various universities and TVETs across the country. But as opposed to the previous years, where every student who managed to get a grade C+ and above and got admission to various institutions with an automatic capitation from the government, students will now be required to apply for government scholarships, loans and bursaries under the new funding model unveiled by the head of state on 3rd of May 2023. The learners will now be categorized into 4, ranging from vulnerable and extremely needy students, who make up 29% of the students joining universities and TVETs this year, who are expected to receive a full government scholarship. The third category are the needy, who will benefit from the government scholarship of up to a maximum of 53% for those joining university and 50% for those joining TVETs. And the fourth category is the less needy students, who will get a government scholarship of only a maximum of 38% for those joining university and 32% for those joining TVETs. The students who are not getting a full scholarship are expected to supplement the full cost of the program through loans and household contribution. Under the new funding model, the government will provide scholarships to students who select degree programs in public universities. Those who select programs in private universities and TVETs will not get government scholarships, but will only be eligible to apply for HELB loans. Safin Acheng Oma, Citizen TV.
All right. Now, I want to now introduce the Chief Executive Officer at the Higher Education Loans Board, that is Charles Ringera. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Sorry for the rain.
We prayed for it, so we are happy with it.
Okay, all right. And you're just joining us when you're talking about that new model financing government programs, university programs, the universities. And Dr. Let me start with you, because now you had said that the universities have up to today to submit to you the cost of programs. What is the success rate so far?
Yes, we gave the universities up to today. We've had meetings with the vice chancellors. We had a meeting yesterday. We had a meeting with the registrars, just to clarify the kind of costs that we expect. You know, previously, with the challenges that Geoffrey has alluded to,
right,
universities were getting very creative, and they would have a lot of small costs, introduce a lot of small costs that were not disclosed to the students prior to making the choice to go in there. And we said we need to have a moment of disclosure, you know, tell the students this is what it means to come to this university. Because if we have a component of household contribution, then we need to know it is 7% of what. So the advice that we gave is that, and the directive given by the president is that they give us the cost, the full cost of the program. Then we will put that in the portal. So as they look at, the students look at every program, they know to take a Bachelor of Education in KU, for example, this is how much it will cost me for the year. And these were the cutoffs for last year, so that as they make a choice, then it is very clear it's not just on the requirement in terms of the subject requirement. It also has to a component of cost to it, and what that would mean to the family, or how much they will be applying now for the loan and for the scholarship. But Sam, I want to make a correction on the item
report
that we have just run.
Yep.
We will be providing scholarships to students who choose public universities. First, the platform will be all the programs available for both public and private universities. Now, we have some universities that are offering diploma and certificate courses. So they have what they call TVET schools within the university. So those will not receive the scholarship.
Okay.
But they will be there for the students to see and choose. But we also have our TVET institutions that are under the Ministry of Education. These are the TTIs, we call them TTIs, and the National Polytechnics. There are about 200 of them. So those that are under the Ministry of Education, the students will be able to access both loans and government scholarship.
Right.
Yeah. So I needed to make that correction because the TVETs are in two. We have the TVETs within the universities and the TVETs that are under the Ministry of Education. So
if you decide to take a TVET course at a university, then you finance yourself? You finance yourself. And that has been the case even in the previous years. But aren't you afraid that if you're to put the cost element at the selection point, you might shock away some learners, especially when they look at the affordability of those? I mean, how do you balance that between the reality but also scaring away learners because of the cost?
Sam, I would rather know the truth and make a decision based on the fact than get to the university and get surprises, because we've seen that has contributed to a lot of dropout.
Right.
Yeah, where students go and they find they have to pay for lab, they have to pay for attachments, you know, computers. When you ask a student how much does it cost now at the university, they go in expecting to pay 16,000. Yeah, but when they are in there, they find with all those other costs, it gets up to between 50 and 80,000.
Right.
So you'd rather know that this is the consolidated amount that I need to pay. But also, it has been, you know, a responsibility that I would say we had neglected, because it is in the Act that COPs should actually disseminate information on programs and their costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me the success rate so far. How many universities have submitted?
Oh, I can tell you, because all of them are looking forward to beat the deadline. All, both public and private.
That's not specific, Dr. How many universities have so far submitted?
Okay, what we have provided an email for them to do that. And from the meeting that we had yesterday, they all made a promise that of course, they had to go back and consult. You know, it's something that they have to work really fast within around the clock. We have 69 universities that we are placing students. Mm-hmm. And we have a promise from all the 69 that by the end of the day, it's still early in the morning.
Right.
By the end of the day, I'm sure all the 69 will have given.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll wait and see how that fares. Yeah. Now, Charles, so I look at the new model and you find that the less needy, they'll be getting loans of up to 40% of what they need. The able up to 55%. Let's start off by talking about the status at the moment. How much of loans you're able to disburse to how many students and how many do not qualify or do not end up getting those loans at the moment?
Okay, thank you, Sam. And if you look at the classification that we have given of vulnerable, extremely poor, needy and less needy, right. We have various percentages attached to that according to historical performance of what you call the means testing instrument over time.
Yeah.
And you find that in the vulnerable, you have about 14% of the population that will apply, will actually be able to be classified as very vulnerable. We have another 15% that will be classified as extremely poor. We'll also have another 17% who will be classified as less needy. And then you have another 54% who will be classified as needy. Now, if you look at that makes about 100% of the entire population. Mm-hmm. What we have seen over, and this is a model that we have tested for the last almost 30 years or thereabout, and it is based on scientific experience of our population set up today from an income band perspective. And therefore, we don't expect that this will be any different in right. terms of when we request that the grants, which are now being called scholarships, will also be applied for as much as the loans are also being applied for. So the loans are performed that way, and we are sure that the same way the scholarships will also be able to perform. Mm-hmm. This financial year in particular, or the one that is almost coming to an end, we have a total budget of about 14.8 billion Kenya shillings. Right. And that is the same population we have seen being able to apply. We might have a small challenge this year that we cannot be able to compare with maybe the coming year. One of it being because of overstay in school by virtue of COVID, we have an outstrip of demand where we have more first years demanding for loans than actually was expected earlier to. As I left my desk this morning, you will find that in first years, out of the 90,000 applications in university, we have been able to fund only 24% of those ones because of limited extra support and also loan recoveries. Now, we're looking at next year being a better year, given the commitment of government in terms of provision of more resources, as you heard from His Excellency the President, right. The resources in university have been increased by a whooping, 30 billion. And we do hope that that is part and parcel of what we'll be able to cater for enhanced loan facility. Just like you have said, the less needy, of course, require almost 48% support in terms of loan. And that will be provided through the enhanced resources that we have. Yes.
That's interesting. The 30 billion from the universities fund, is it going to the universities directly, or it's also part of what will go to the HELB?
The extra 30 billion is going to help as loans to students. Because if you see the component, what we have enhanced is the loans to students. Okay. The grants, we already have 15 billion, which comes from the current students who are exiting. We'll have 9 billion from there. And the National Treasury has already given 5.9 billion.
5.9?
Yes, so that gives us 15 billion for scholarships in the coming financial year. Now, what we need to enhance is the loan component, which is coming to 30 billion. in that sector, which means that what Charles is saying, there are 140,000 students, we can be able to take care of those students the coming financial year.
Okay.
Yes.
But now, this is based on the current cost of programs. Once the universities bring in the new data, it might go higher. How do you adjust about that?
So we, in our modeling process, we actually took the actual cost of the program. We requested for a discount from the universities, and that was duly extended because of the bulk purchase that the government is actually buying from the universities. Mm-hmm. And so in our modeling process, in terms of determining the 30 billion or thereabout, we have actually taken into account the actual cost of the program. But remember, that will only be for first years, who are the people who did exams or KCSE in 2022. The other program, that is second years, third years, all those will continue with the old program. So this goes with only the first years that are joining universities and colleges this year.
You know, I have heard of bulk purchase, but it's when you're talking about water, grains, and such. I didn't know it exists in the education sector. But let me get back to you first, because talking about this cost of programs, what is the specific cost, for instance, of a medical medicine program at the University of Nairobi?
The current cost of programs at the University of Nairobi is 630,000
per year.
Per year.
So 630,000 shillings per year, and you find an able student, so the parents are supposed to pay 7%.
Yes.
And 55% of that is supposed to come from the loan. So that's about 340 or 50 or thereabout. So these facilities are available.
That is why you remember all these funds we have talked about are geared for only first years. So we are talking about 15 billion for scholarship and another 30 billion for loans. That brings it to 45 billion.
Charles, at the moment, how much loan do you give to medical students?
So we, again, according to the MTI, means testing instrument, so the most vulnerable will get a maximum of 60,000 and a bursary of 8,000. That gives you a maximum of about 68,000. In contrast, the same student under the new funding mechanism will be accessing all the way up to about 20% of the cost of the program, the one Geoffrey has already said. For example, if you take University of Nairobi. So we are looking at about 64,000 in terms of the vulnerable ones for purposes of the loan. Remember that excludes also his own upkeep, which is estimated to about 26,000 per student.
Wait, the 630,000 is per year?
Yes, it is per year.
So if, let me just calculate it, 55% of 630,000 for a medicine course would be 346,000, that is per year. If you're giving a loan of 60,000 shillings at the moment, then how do they finance the balance?
That is the old mechanism. No. You asked me, what is the old mechanism? I said it's about a maximum of 68,000. Under the new mechanism, then you calculate at a rate of about 30% of that cost of the program. Remember to give the bulk discount, please.
Okay, but okay, assuming you work with the figure that, as it is before you discount it, so you'll have resources to give a loan of 346,000 shillings to a student from an able family every year? Yes.
That will be having, and that's why you heard His Excellency talk about the enhanced resources to the university sector.
Dr. Agnes, isn't that too much for a learner? Because, look, we live in a world, because you need 6 years at the School of Medicine, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that would be a loan of about 2.1 million shillings to be repaid once they get a job. Isn't that such a burden on learners?
Sam, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Remember, at the point where they're going in, when I'm dealing with them, then we have those that are poor and the able.
Right.
Yeah. Today, medicine in Aga Khan University is about 1.5 million in a year for self-sponsored. If you go abroad, it is even more.
Right.
But once these people get their education, they are all equal. Yeah. So education gets all of them equal, and they get jobs, and they are able to pay this over a period of time. Yeah. So we are looking at first, can we provide courses that are marketable, you know? So there is the whole aspect of looking at what are the kind of courses that we are offering these students, because we don't want them going into universities to do programs that they will not get jobs. So we start from there. Then we see programs like nursing. The demand for nursing is international. Right. So can we have more of our institutions being able to provide these programs? Then once they get the loan, it may sound a lot, but they have a longer period to repay. And when you know that you're actually doing a program that guarantees you a job after that, then it's not a big problem. And maybe what Charles can talk about, there are also other products,
right,
you know, of the loan that the students and the parents can also access.
Okay. I mean, I'm not disputing that there are good thoughts that have gone into this, but let me focus on the less needy cadre, because there are those learners that really performed well, and they'll qualify to choose medicine. And like I said, so you put the course there, you put the cut-off points. A learner can say that I qualify for this, so they go ahead and apply for it, but they will need a loan of 252,000 shillings if they're from the less needy category, which gets a loan of 40%. If you multiply that by 6 years, it comes to about 1.8 million shillings. We live in a country where availability of jobs is, you know the challenges that we're facing. Mm-hmm. So how much grace period do you give these people, knowing the enhanced loan that they'll have to deal with, for them to repay, but also for their own safety and sanity before they can get a job?
So, Sam, I think we must contextualize what, in terms of saying, I have a loan burden. If you are doing medicine in UK, you graduate with a loan burden of about 50,000 UK pounds. That's nothing compared with what you're talking about, 2.4 million Kenya shillings. Again, we know that doctors are, get to the top of any kind of pay in terms of the job market. Yesterday, I saw a report talking about the professions that are paying well. Actually, doctors are still, top of the curve. Now, we give them loan for 6 years, just like you have already said. We then give them a grace period of 1 year, depending with the program that you are doing. Engineers is 5 years in school, 1 year. Then, the other bachelor's degrees is 4 years and 1 year in terms of grace period. And then after that 1 year, you are supposed to start repaying your loan.
Right.
Ordinarily, we give the loanees 10 years to pay after that, after graduation. And they do that on a monthly basis or on a periodical basis. Okay. But our loans are timed on a monthly basis. However, our experience has shown that most of the loanees will never run to 10 years. Between 2 to 3, 5 years, they're already out of that loan program, given that their pays are much better, or whatever engagement they get involved into, they are able to raise more resources, and they want to get out of that loan program.
And that is possible because if you get a loan of, you say maximum is about 60,000 shillings. 60 times, if you do a program of 4 years, then that's about 240,000 shillings. It's not too much to really cover within a short time. Mm-hmm. But all the same, so how much would it cost to study Bachelor of Education program?
Bachelor of Education is about 288,000.
Per year?
Per year.
So 288,000. So for those that are from able families, that would come to about 150 or thereabout?
Yes, per year. And there are 2 semesters, that's about 50,000. And remember, Sam, it's not a must that you must take the loan if you're able. If you look at the able category, we are talking about people who are earning up to 200,000 per month. in the family. So if it's somebody who is earning 200,000 per month, it means you may opt not to take the loan, or if you are taking, you take the amount that you shall be able to pay, because you have got other maybe children. So you may ask your son or daughter, instead of taking the 100,000 per year, you say, why don't you ask for a loan of 50,000, and then the other 50,000 I can be able to pay slowly. So those are the options that this new funding model gives in terms of flexibility, in terms of even a parent who wants, who may not have cash at that moment, will ensure that the child is able to join, and they can be able to support and even pay. You don't have to finish your studies to pay for the loan. Your parent can still come halfway and sort out that problem, because you are able to comfortably go through and the facilities are there. And like now, when the facilities are not there, so the child is not able to go through university properly, and the quality is not guaranteed.
What did you say is the percentage of learners that are in the category of able?
Actually, we don't fund able. Is less needy.
No. There's a provision for loans. 55%.
Yes, less needy. The total population is about 54%. And that they will access a loan of 48%.
54% are less needy.
Yes.
Will access 48%
of the loan, and 24% of the scholarship.
That's confusing, because the president spoke about 53% coming from the government.
Remember, the president is speaking about average.
Okay.
So if you average all the classes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So what happens to private institutions, Dr. Wahome? Because there's a question that is coming through, what happens to them? Because at the moment, you said I think it was you, that 3 billion shillings has been going to the private institutions to finance learners that have chosen private universities. So what happens there?
Yeah, what we have seen is, from that historical perspective I gave, the private universities have a contribution, and they make a big contribution in supporting education in this country. When we look at the universities that are faith-based, for example, we have about 14 universities thereabout that are faith-based. And most of them even offer full scholarships to the students who attend these universities. They are offering programs that are, expensive to run. We have Catholic University that has nursing programs. Daystar has actually declared 200 places for nursing. We have Baraton, so they make a big contribution. Actually, looking at the nursing program, currently we are having 1,500 vacancies or capacities. A third of that, that's about 555, are in the private universities.
Right.
So saying that we will not place students in private universities would have meant, again, limiting the options for the students. So like the president said, we will offer the courses, on the platform, but the students who choose those courses in the private universities will not get the government scholarship, but they will be eligible to apply for the loans. So when we talk of for example, the able, the less needy, when we are talking about the 24% grant scholarship, they will not be able to access that, but they can apply up to a maximum of 48% of the loan.
Do you foresee a situation where private universities will have less students joining?
This is a free market. I think it's all about the quality you offer. We have universities like Strathmore that are not on the platform, but they never lack students. If anything, students queue to to be admitted. I think now some of the programs, they are taking students who did exams in 2021. Mm-hmm. So if students know that you have a good product, you offer quality, then Kenyans are willing to pay. Now, when we look at the 19,000, the students who sat for the exam, the 850,000, only 19.9% got C+ and above. So when you look at the demographics of this 19.9%, these are mainly students who are in national schools, right? Students who are in the Strathmores, the McKinney, and those. So we are saying we have a population that can actually afford to pay if we have good services. And that's where we are going to now. Universities have to up their game. Mm-hmm. They have to provide quality services if they have to exist. And this is for both public and private. That comfort zone of knowing that they will have a government, the students' place there will definitely be supported by government. Now for them, they have to provide quality services to even retain the students. Because if the services are not of quality, the students have a right to move. They come to COOPS and we will transfer them based on their needs and their choices. So if they transfer, if you want to retain them, then you give them the best and they will stay, regardless of how much. We have Kenyans going to private hospitals. Why do we have never closed the private hospitals? Because of their costs? Because Kenyans know what is good for them.
Okay. No, I'm just asking that because of what has been going on. They might have got into that a comfortable situation that there will be sponsorship coming from the government. But how does the cost of those degrees compare between private universities and private universities?
Some
public and private, sorry.
Well, public and private, they are actually, the costs are comparable, similar, and some private universities are high. As Mercy has said, you can see Aga Khan University is about 1.5 medicine, University of Nairobi you're talking about 600, so you can see the difference. If you go to Strathmore, for example, computer science, you're talking about 1.6 million Kenyans are paying, and in a normal university, you'll be talking about 300,000.
Yeah.
So the costs are varied, but Kenyans are choosing some universities because of the quality.
Right.
And just to add, I think we are preparing Kenyans to be employable across the world, so that we are not limiting them because of the quality of education that this model will be able to bring. Okay. And the sanity in the university, so that the frequent disputes that are there because of non-payment of salaries, where students come out and employers are complaining that they are half-baked and they have to take them back. All these things will now be a thing of the past, because the universities will be able to up their game and to ensure that the students are well prepared for the job market in Kenya and across the world.
Right.
Yes.
And Charles, at the moment, how able are you to give loans to students in private institutions? Does that happen?
Yes. Way back in 1998, HELB started giving loans also in private universities, because the HELB loan is depending with your vulnerability. In fact, most people don't know that we have over, in terms of the current students who are on the loan program, we are about 400,000. We have about 150,000 of them who are actually in private universities. So it depends with your vulnerability. As long as you complete your loan application and we assess you in terms of your neediness, we then will be able to extend the facility to you, whether you're in public or private universities. But for this model, just like what Dr. Agnes Mase has said, you realize that the private universities will not be getting the government grant or scholarship, but will be able to access the loan depending on your vulnerability levels.
Or is there a percentage, the cap on the percentage?
The percentage of?
What is the cap on the amount of the percentage of a loan you can access if you're in the private university?
It's the same. The banding will be the same, with the less needy getting all the way up to 48%.
48%.
Yes.
Interesting, because someone was asking a question about if the students will apply for loans from private universities will be considered, and if they will be treated in a similar manner, and I think you've responded to that. We're waiting to take a look at some of the feedback that has been coming to us via Citizen TV Kenya at Sam Gichuku. The hashtag to use is a daybreak. But at the same time, if you have to reflect now on, there's a bit of a concern about now the segregation that once these learners eventually get to these institutions, how do you get to take care of self-sponsored programs? Do they remain, or that is scrapped altogether? We'll begin with you if you have an answer.
Remember, we will now have the households also participating. So I don't know whether you call that self-sponsored.
No, I'm talking about, remember previously there was the module 2, you call it, or when I was there it was self-sponsored program, that if you're not placed by a COOPS, that time it was JAB, then you can come in through module 2 and you finance all the way to the extent that the university wants to charge you. So does that still exist, or it's gone forever?
Remember also that Module 2 that you're calling Module 2 was actually also accessing loans. So the student will come and apply for the loans and will give the maximum of that loan, and then they will be able to top up the difference with the household capacity, or the parent will be able to support them. I don't see any difference in terms of how that Module 2 will run today, and how it's running today, and how it will run into next year. But maybe Mercy can be able to run.
Okay.
Now, the Module 2 students that we had then were those that were kind of disadvantaged by the system, where a cutoff is set and you're forced by the circumstance to be a Module 2 student. That's if you can afford. So there are those who could not afford and never went to the university. Now what we're saying is, one, we are only placing those who apply. So if you choose not to apply, then you can go into Module 2 right away.
Okay.
Yeah. Now there are those who want to take a program, but because of the limited capacities, for example, medicine, we have 623 capacities across all the universities. Yeah. But when you look at the number of students who apply for medicine, we have probably 3,000 applying. But this 623 is what the universities have said they are willing to take what we call the students under the government scholarship. So they do not declare everything. So you find a university like Mount Kenya, they have a capacity to take about 150 medical students, but they declare 10. Yeah? So it's a free world. So when they declare that, it means they have the other 120 that they can take. So a student who chooses that they do not want to get into this whole process and they want to go directly because of the quality that that university is offering, or the proximity to their home, or whatever reasons, then they can go direct. So you find all the universities, what they declare to COOPS is not 100% of what they can take. So they still have there's still an opportunity for what we call Module 2, but now Module 2 is out of your own choice and not by being rejected. You're not forced into a Module 2 system because you have been rejected by the system.
I think I can weigh into that slightly, because we'll have 3 categories of students: the government-sponsored, private-sponsored, and foreign students. That's what we are looking at. The private will always remain, because remember what Dr. Mercy Wahome has said, we are only taking 19% of the current students. The rest are going to TVET colleges and other institutions. These students, with the time, want to pursue degrees. So that pipeline doesn't close. There is also another category of people who are working and want to take up degrees in future, and all these classification of students that are there. Others who want to pursue other programs because they have had a passion for a program. There are also a category of students who will be placed, but they don't like the location of the university, they don't like the program they were placed in. So private students will always remain. The one key thing that we are also pushing our universities is to try and attract foreign students.
Foreign students?
Yes.
Yeah. But tell me about, because a while ago, the self-sponsor programs, or Module 2 if you call it, used to be such a serious pillar of financing universities. And if you recall, since I think after the KCSE of 2016, then the number of even those that qualified to go to the university started reducing, such that even the cutoff point was now taken to be the minimum, which is C+. So finding that all the students that score C+ and above are now joining universities. So also a pool of the students to join the Module 2 rather, reduced. How did that affect the availability of finances for universities also, especially the public ones?
That hugely affected, because the number dropped from 169,000 in 1 year to about 66. So you can see the universities lost about 100,000. And then there was a cutoff, as Mercy said. They used to take 38% of the students. So there was another over 100,000 students who are left to join the Module 2 program.
Right.
But that ceased after all the students were being absorbed moving forward. There also other thing that used to happen then. Employers, once you are getting a degree or any degree, master's, be it master's or undergraduate, you used to get a promotion. That ceased because the government and employers started looking more towards productivity than the paper that you bring to the employer. If you look at those two dynamics, that the shift that changed in those two areas was able to ensure that the number reduced drastically, and it highly affected. The other thing was the number of universities. In 2012, there were about 14 universities that were chartered, 12 or 14 at once. So the capacity increased in the country all of a sudden. And this greatly affected how the university sector was. And since then also, we have seen the universities growing slowly. But that specific period, 2012, at the end of 2012, as we were moving 2013, there were about 12 universities that were chartered in our country.
Meaning then, if all this, the entire pool is now going to the government sponsorship, whether it's a scholarship or loaning or family financing, it reduces also the pool that is available for private institutions, doesn't it?
On the contrary, you know, the population is still growing. This last year we had about 850,000. Yes. When we look at the class that is in Form 3 now, we'll have about 1.1, 1.2 candidates. So with the growing population, and then the reforms that are also taking place in the education sector,
right,
then you expect the number of people qualifying to go to the universities increasing. So the government cannot continue funding everyone. You know, we have reached a point where the envelope, you know, has burst. As much as we are now looking at the new funding model,
right.
You notice that the funding model is looking at putting more money into the loan than, you know, just a scholarship. Because a loan, at least you create a revolving fund.
Okay.
So I don't think there is any fear that any universities, be it public or private, should, you know, have the fear that they will close because of the new funding model.
Okay, anyway, we have the time to monitor how that goes. I want us to take a look at the feedback that has come to us via Twitter, Citizen TV Kenya Sam Gituku. The hashtag to use is Daybreak. So much interest coming in. We'll begin with who? This is, takes a bit of time sometimes, but it usually cooperates. Anyway, I think they'll be sharing with me the feedback. I don't know what's not cooperating there. But we hope that the universities will be cooperating to give you feedback in terms of the cost of courses. But there's a question that someone was asking about how did, okay, I'm told it's ready now. Okay, thank God. Lilian CEO is asking, it's quite a well thought out policy. 20 billion is such a significant amount to be wasted on someone's preference. Let it be channeled to improve infrastructure in public universities. Someone else is saying that Engineer Lazaro universities should turn to innovation in order to generate their own funds. In China, institutions of higher learning contributing to almost 30% of their GDP. I think Geoffrey will be responding to that. Samuel Oworth, you are talking about the public universities could be the first casualties in the new funding formula that seeks to support poor families, while also giving adequate support to the rest of students. Wow, what do you mean casualties? James Soma, raising the cutoff points is an illegality because education is a right. Why should we punish innocent, hardworking children of taxpayers for the failure of government to prioritize affordable education? We should forfeit things like affordable housing and expand universities. I don't know who spoke about cutoff points. Remy Butia, the funding model could deepen the current challenges as public universities will have to compete for students with private institutions, some of which have better amenities and resources. Maybe you can take that down, private versus public, the competition for students. Kipngeno, you're saying there are students who are yet to graduate, yet Higher Education Loans Board has shamelessly forwarded them to CRB for failing to repay their loans. After how long should the students' loans be deemed a default? That's a question for Charles. And then Bob Otieno, it's a high time for universities to start money in income-generating activities to help them not depend on government financially. And Eddie Onditi, policy implementation should be done well in advance before they are due. This is not the time to request for list of courses and their cost. It's getting late and learners are waiting. Are they late, Dr. Wahome?
No, they're not.
Yeah.
We are looking at the September intake.
Yeah.
You know, we have always worked with the September intake. And when they give their costs by today, we promise that in a week's time we'll be able to open the portal.
Right.
They will have 3 weeks to submit their first revision. Then, so what we are saying is by August, actually by end of July, everyone should be able to know where they've been placed, and then they have time to prepare.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Charlwood Rosie, what is affecting universities is corruption. Money, 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 all the time. Education has been compromised in the universities. Money is being misappropriated all the time. Lecturers are going without pay. Very sad. I think that is just a feel of the challenges. Babu Michael, I felt the idea for the previous government to sponsor students in private universities was the removal of class in education, ensure that any qualified student can study in any university, but now private universities will be for the rich. All right. So, a few questions here. Charles, someone is asking about that you're demanding for payments even before students graduate. Is that factual? But also, if they don't find work, can the grace period be extended by how much?
Yes, I think it is not factual that we request you to start repaying your loan before you complete your studies.
Right.
When we engage with you on the first year of your loan application, we know the timing of your courses, whether it is medicine, engineering, or other degrees that are going for 4 years, and that is the timer that we put on your loan account.
Right.
And after that time is completed, if there is a situation where you cannot be able to graduate, you tell us. In fact, you can even request for extra funding because you could have a medical case, and that's why you are not able to graduate on time. But according to the timestamp we have put on the system, then we require you to start repaying the loan 1 year after your graduation. And there is no time we can be able to forward your names to CRB, just like one of the respondents has actually commented on. But it takes that all the way up to 6 years for us to be able to forward your names. That is what you would call hardcore debt. Remember, you have 10 years to pay. But if you are on the 6th year, you have never even made an attempt of coming to, tell us what is happening with your life, then it becomes difficult for us to be able to find you. Yes, you can come to us and negotiate. And that's why we say, help cares, help listens, come we talk. Don't disappear from us. Thank you.
Okay, go talk. So the interest rate is still 4%?
4%.
Will it change with the high amounts?
No, it's not changing. Remember, as per Section 43 F of our Constitution, Article 43 F of our Constitution, it's a right. Education is a right, as somebody has already indicated.
Right.
So government still takes this as one of the social protection programs of the citizenry for them to be able to advance their education. Okay.
Geoffrey, that universities should adopt innovation, should adopt income-generating activities. How successful have they been? The university I went to, I'll not mention it because I don't want you to victimize it, but you might know it if I describe it. They used to have a hotel business. They also used to have some textile factory. How are they faring on that front, innovation and income-generating activities?
I think it is something that we encourage. However, we encourage that universities separate that from their core mandate of teaching, learning, and research, so that you can have a separate entity that is dealing with that, so that you do not burden a vice-chancellor to every day deal with the hotel you have, the farm that you have. Right. Otherwise, you find that one of the businesses that you are in will be able to suffer. It has been a challenge. Some universities have done very well in some of the income-generating activities. We are encouraging them. It is one of the reforms that we are looking at for them to diversify. In fact, there are 4 areas in which we are looking at them to look at. That is the student financing, the student-centered financing, which we are going into, research and innovation. We are really challenging universities to be more innovative and to commercialize their research. And we will be putting in place measures to ensure that these research areas that are commercialized are incentivized and they are supported by government. The other area is capital funds grants. We are looking into that, how they'll be given these grants so that they can grow the infrastructure to support them in some of these income-generating activities, because you will not be able to, let's say, run a hotel if you don't have the infrastructure. So if we realize that you have got a good plan, then that will be able to be supported. Services such as consultancy. We are looking at universities supporting government in many of the consultancies that government agencies go into. How can they be able to get even a quota? Right. Like what we do, Build Kenya, Buy Kenya, where it is 40%. Why not ring fence for universities, maybe 50% of all consultancies? Because anyway, we know that many of the consultants who do this work come from the universities, but in their own private capacities. But to ensure that there is sustainability in the universities, these are some of the things that we need to ensure that we support. We want to create an environment for the universities to generate extra funds for them to not only rely on the fees that we shall be paying, but they should be able to generate other funds for themselves.
Okay, interesting. And I don't know who has the answer to this, because there's someone who's also asking, what is the framework of determining who is vulnerable, less needy, able? Like, what will you look at?
So there are several parameters. There are actually 8 categories that we look at in terms of determining the classification or stratification of the population. As we say, this is a scientific model that is mainly based on household income, and that household income is then weighted according to disposable income of the family. But at the end of the day, what we are looking at is not to vilify somebody who has a high income, but then when you look at the disposable income, is actually much lower than what is put in there. So we have linkages with people like Kenya Revenue Authority, NHIF, NSSF, and all these help us in terms of determining the disposable income of that family, dividing against the population in that household family. So it's a scientific model. We have used it for over 30 years, just like His Excellency the President was actually saying, and we are sure that actually based on that model or that assessment, then it should be able to portray the population on the ground. Notwithstanding, in case we miss a step, because there is no model which is 100% accurate, but if you get a model which is 96, 98% accurate, then you are good to go with that kind of a model. And if we make a mistake, there is always a room for every applicant of the scholarship and the loan to be able to say, I think there's a point you missed, just look at this area again. And then with the evidence that is provided, we are then able to change the numbers.
Let's take a case that you have a family where one of the spouse, I don't say whether it's a father or mother, has a salary of 100,000 shillings. After tax, it comes to about 70,000. You have the other spouse getting 60,000 shillings. After tax comes to about 40,000 shillings. Of course, there are many deductions that come, NHIF, NSSF, and the other friends called the loans. So you end up with just about maybe 90,000 shillings disposable income, for instance. Who is that? Are they vulnerable, needy, able?
Depending with the weight. They could be having 10 children who are depending on that.
Assuming they have 3 and all of them is joining university.
Yes, then you divide up by the 90,000 by 3, so they will fall in the bracket of 30,000. Yes.
So who is that?
That's a
needy, vulnerable.
No, that's an extremely poor.
Then those are the majority, because if you look at the average salary in Kenya, it's about 20,000 or thereabout.
And that tells you the population that we have classified there, which is about 29% between vulnerable and extremely poor. It's about 29%.
So this will be assessed on case-to-case basis?
It's case-to-case.
So when they're applying the loans, they have to submit what? Pay slips?
Several things. First of all, you quote your income.
Yeah.
You quote your KRA PIN, if in case you have it, or you might be having income that you're not on the KRA platform. We then verify that with the IPRS, because we are linked also to IPRS, where you can see the family tree. So even when you say we have 10 children who depend on this income, we can actually be able to trace it within the IPRS that you have already keyed on the system.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Final thoughts, Dr. Wahome.
Yeah. First, I would wish to let the students who applied while they were in school, what we call the center application, the students who applied before sitting for exams, to really urge them to revise their courses once we open the portal, because at that point we did not have the costs, we did not have the difference of the public and private, so they need to reconsider their choices and ensure they go back to the system and apply. There was a comment on the cutoff, and what we said that with this model, the cutoff now does not apply.
Right.
Yeah, and what we were curing a situation where we do not have to go back to cutoff, because we know what that meant to Kenyans. Yeah.
Geoffrey?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think what we are implementing, this new model, is what Kenyans told the Presidential Working Party, that they want changes in the universities, they want to see quality education, and they want to see that their children are very competitive when they leave the universities. So what was said across the country is what we are implementing, and we shall ensure, as it is being rolled out, the quality of education in this country improves, and our children who are in the universities get the best, comparable to other countries where we have seen this model working, that is in Canada, Australia, and the US. So I expect that in the next few years, because it's not something that will happen overnight, we shall see Kenyans going out there again and being employed and getting meaningful work, as they'll be the best quality in the world. Thank you.
All right, and Charles, your final thoughts.
Yes, just to call on Kenyans, Sam, to support this program. As we have seen in the past, the biggest resource this country has is not fuel, is not petroleum, but actually our human capital. We must be able to be globally competitive. The challenge of globally competitive graduates for this country has been lack of resources to the universities. This model gives the universities an opportunity for them to recapitalize themselves and also have a bigger inflow of resources to the universities. So it is my expectation that actually with more resources, then we should have globally competitive education that actually gives us a global passport to be able to work anywhere in this world, because we are competing with China. We are not competing maybe with the neighbors that we have today, so that we can see more remittances, foreign remittances coming from outside there, out of our human capital investment. Yes.
All right. I want to thank you for making time for us to have this conversation this morning, and of course the viewers of the feedback that you've shared with us. Many questions that are still coming in, and I'm sure there will be more clarity in the coming days. Dr. Agnes Wahome has promised us that by the close of business today, the 69 institutions will have submitted their costing of programs for the learners to go and apply on what should be what they study for the next few years. Thank you, Dr. Agnes Wahome from COOPS, or should I say Agnes Mercy Wahome? One Charles Ringera from HELB, and Geoffrey Munari from Universities Fund. Thank you for making time for us to have this conversation. Up next is Matters Social with Willis Raburu. Bye for now. My name is Sam Gituku. See you some other time.
Thank you.